So a very good morning, good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to our webinar this afternoon, which is looking at IACC's 2022 Meeting Room of the Future report. For those who haven't joined a session before, we will ask you, once we've done the introductions, just to pop your cameras off and put your microphones on mute, because we will record the session, so it makes it much clearer for the recording. I will forward you all the recording afterwards, and also it is available on the IACC Webinar on Demand page and IACC YouTube channel. Without further ado, let me hand you over to our presenter today, IACC CEO Mark Cooper. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Kate, and hello everyone and welcome. I am super excited because this is our maiden voyage for the IACC Meeting Room of the Future Spring 2022 Barometer. So the good news is no one else has heard this data and news. The bad news is this is the first time that I've presented it. So if we get a little bit clunky along the way, or I pause for breath a little bit more than I would do normally, this is because this is fresh, it's new, and only just released to the global industry in the last 24 hours. So I'm thrilled that you could all join today. And as Kate said, we are recording the session, but equally importantly, I'm going to be showing you some highlights from the larger report, which is available to view online and download as a PDF as well, either in infographic or in the full report status. So there's no need to take copious notes. But like I say, I'm really excited to be with you today. I just want to take the opportunity as well to thank those who have been involved in putting together the IACC Meeting Room of the Future research and report. We're now in our 10th year of IACC Meeting Room of the Future, which is incredible to think. And some years we've done 2 or more reports, so I'm sure we're well over the 13, 14 report milestone. So thank you to all of those on this screen who have either been a financial contributor to making sure that the research and the campaign and the project is viable, or to those from our partners like MPI, SHFM, CVent and Events Industry Council, which have stepped up and helped us with data, with collaboration, with survey support as well. It's been an incredible contribution. Now, none of this research comes about as a result of just 1 or 2 people putting the data together. So first of all, I would like to call out and thank Ellen Sinclair, Vice President of Benchmark. Ellen joins us today. So welcome, Ellen, and thank you on behalf of all of us for the work that you've done along with Neil, Joe, Alan, Benjamin, Robin, and of course our many report contributors that you can see in there, and you'll recognize all of those names. So really appreciate the work that you and the task force do, Ellen, in getting these reports into such great shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go camera off, just so that I know that we can give you a little bit more of a full screen here today, and make sure that you can see all of the data. There is a lot of data here to share with you. So I'm really excited. I picked what I think are the highlights, and hope that these are going to give you a useful snapshot as to just that pace of our recovery. So first of all, for any of you who are not familiar, who are joining today, and I can see there are a few names that I don't recognize, which is absolutely awesome, to give you an idea of what IACC Meeting Room of the Future stands for. It is essentially the framework where we bring together the brightest venue operators around the world, the very best meeting planners, the suppliers that are out there servicing our wonderful industry, and of course, industry experts, those who are absolute gurus at their chosen speciality, whether it's technology, food, beverage, nutrition. We bring together the rich pool of talent that we've got access to within IACC, and we ask for their perspective. We ask them to look at what the future of meetings holds. And for us, the Barometer, which is brand new this year, is a report that absolutely is there to, on a quarterly basis, look at this rapid pace of recovery. We bring in and harvest all of the rich data that is available on other industry platforms. So you will see references in the report to the Event Industry Council's Barometer, to the MPI Meetings Outlook, to Encore Global's meeting planner surveys that they do quarterly. We brought that data in and we sit it alongside our own data that we've harvested from our members to give you a single lens to try and focus in on the recovery of the small to mid-sized conference meetings and training business, which of course is the only thing that we're interested in, isn't it? So in 45 minutes, we're going to look at a snapshot of the 5 key areas that we included in this spring barometer report. First of all, let's take a look at that pace of recovery. Secondly, the client priorities in the new meetings landscape. As we bounce back differently, and what might we be needed to think about in regards to either our facilities or the services or the products or the way we offer what we do in our industry. We'll take a look as well at property and product investment. Of course, some of us have been busy in the last 2 years, hunkering down, surviving. Others have been investing, and others are investing or have plans for investment in the future. And we realize that for you as property operators and leaders and owners, you're really interested in what level of investment is taking place, because knowledge is power and power is reduced risk. And so this is a really important area, we know, for some of you. We'll look at workforce development, staffing, reskilling. And again, this is a perspective this time as to what our members feel. In fact, all 5 of these areas of focus for the barometer have been garnered and gathered through the information from 87 IACC conference venue properties throughout Europe, Australia, the US and Canada. And it's great to see today that we've got representatives from Sweden, from the UK, from US, from Canada, major areas of contribution to the research for this barometer. So thank you to all of you who contributed. For those of you who didn't have the opportunity this time round, that's okay. Watch out for the barometers that come in the future, because we will be focusing on giving these outputs every quarter, because the industry is moving so quickly at the moment that we realize an annual meeting room of the future report is just not of value. We need to be thinking and measuring the industry and that rebound far more rapidly. Lastly, we'll be looking at social and environmental responsibility. It's an area that we picked out on this barometer of importance. We were seeing changes in the industry, and so that's what we're putting a focus on this time. Point number 5, when we come to our July report, may change to a focal spotlight on areas such as technology and hybrid. And so we really will watch this space and adapt and adjust as we go along. So let's get into area 1, that pace of recovery. Now, EIC's data is really quite interesting. If we go back even as far as Q4, and I know we're into Q1 now of 2022, but even in Q4, in the last couple of months, we've been reporting through various channels, including the Events Industry Council, that increase in recovery in room nights. So from Q3, it went from 51% to 57%. And I have no doubt that when we look at Q1 data, we'll be seeing an even bigger bounce back for Q1 in 2022. What's really interesting, I know, to this audience, to all of you today, for all of us who operate those venues with smaller conferences, meetings and training, is we're absolutely seeing the strongest recovery amongst the smaller events. To be expected, possibly, to be enthusiastic about and excited about for our future and how rapidly IACC venues have bounced back, absolutely. And of course, none of you will be surprised to hear that there's shorter lead times are very much here and now. And in fact, I've been talking to our member venues throughout the US and Europe, and it's not unusual for me to hear stories of, we have no availability until the end of June. We have no availability until the end of September. We really are seeing very rapid lead times and pressures as it relates to our sales and marketing teams being able to deal with the sheer volume. It really is quite impressive. Now, interestingly, if you were part of this survey sample, you would have seen that we have separated commercial venues, those venues that are open to any type of business, with the corporate conference centres. So, for instance, Deloitte University, IBM in Crotonville. There are many different venues that are solely focused on just serving the needs of one client. And actually, you won't hear me tell too much of a story of a difference between the two, because there's only a few areas where there's some marked difference between corporate venues and fully commercial marketed properties. But that's the difference that I'll call out today between the two. So one of the areas that we're the most interested in is just what does that pace of recovery look like? And globally, it's really, really impressive. 2021 revenues were 45% down on 2019 revenues. And of course, that would have been far worse in 2020. But look at that bounce back in terms of what our venue operators, our general managers, directors of sales and marketing, what they feel that recovery is going to further look like in 2022. These are huge swings. And if you compare those with the EIC data that I shared earlier, that just demonstrates very clearly that IAC venues are in a space to be able to capitalize on that huge thirst for coming back to live meetings. Now, heaven forbid, I do not know what is going on in Denmark, but I take my hat off to them. The bounce back in Denmark is quite phenomenal. And I know this firsthand because I returned from Denmark just yesterday, having been with 180 venue leaders. And I can tell you that 37% growth on 2019 pre-COVID levels is absolutely real. They are racing to make up for lost time, and their venues and hotels are full to the gunnels. Sweden is not far behind. And the UK, you can see there, and the Americas as well, are a little bit more conservative, but still really impressive figures. Now, we also asked the question, at what point do you believe that you will return to the levels that you received in 2019? Globally and generally, you can see a number of countries there. 2023, that's the year that we're going to see the recovery. However, Denmark, as I mentioned, already projecting it in 2022, and the Americas is 2024. Now, we have drawn some comment from that number for the Americas. So for those of you on the call today that are running your conference venue in the Americas, then you may be looking at that number and a little surprised. Now, do put your thoughts into the chat box, anyone on this call, as to when you think you will see in your property your business levels surpassed 2019. And feel free to put a Q1, Q2, you don't need to just do a year. And Kate, at the halfway point, we'll pick up in the chat and get a little bit of a view as to when people feel that your properties are going to return to those levels that you saw pre-pandemic. But really interested to see that pace of recovery. And certainly from the industry's perspective, we've seen a huge amount of comments that's come in from media and press, actually just questioning the validity of some of the numbers in regards to just how positive it looks. So we're in a really, really strong position here. So the next area that we're going to look at is thinking about the return of our clients. Now, this is quite specifically the rebooking of clients. So clients that we used to have in the past, coming back to our venues as opposed to booking new clients. And it's really interesting when we look at these numbers in terms of the difference between certainly our marketed and our non-marketed corporate conference venues. But what this tells me and others that have looked at the research is we're going to see a change in our client base. We're going to see new clients coming through that didn't book before. And certainly if you take a deeper look at CVent's research, there were certain industries that were preparing to do more live meetings in the future than they had done previously. And by equal measure, other industries that were looking to do less live events than they were. So of course, as we can see those habits changing at a corporate level, we're going to see our customer base change. So we better be locked into the fact that they're going to see a shift, and we're not going to bounce back to the business mix that we had in the past in relation to our different clients and our top 10 clients. So that's very interesting as we look to our sales and marketing strategies, look at where we're going to be prospecting. And of course, if you attend a Master Connections course, you will be hearing over the coming weeks and months. If you're at IAC Americas Connect in Las Vegas, there'll be 2 sessions that are being run there by our the experts, Master Connections associates, who again will be looking at those key areas of where you mine and prospect the industry sectors that are responding well to that return to live meetings. So let's take a look now at corporate social responsibility. And we deliberately put this in here because all of you will have seen the race to net zero. I was reading an industry article today where a major conference and event was saying that they were going to get to net zero conference and meeting by 2050. I mean, this was a huge trade fair, admittedly, but we're all now on that path to make our meetings and events carbon neutral, to leave no footprint behind us after an event has packed up and gone home. Now, if you look at this data, and you can see it very clearly here, by equal measure, almost 50-50 across the board. You've got you've got venues that are reporting they're receiving repeat requests from clients to either state or provide a social responsibility and show and demonstrate environmental credentials. It's still a big number, and I think that number probably has grown in the last 2 years. If we'd have measured 2 years ago, we could have been absolutely certain about that, but of course we can't, and it's very different times. Number 5, now on first sort of blush of looking at those numbers, you might say, well, only 13% are seeking the measurement of the carbon to run their meeting at venues, so that's really quite low. But I just encourage us all maybe to think about this a little bit more, because 13% is still quite a large number when you consider that probably 2 years ago, we had next to nobody, if anybody at all, asking our venues, can you calculate from the meeting event that we want to host with you what our CO2 emissions will be? Then that could be considered quite rapid, and potentially we've got to keep a close eye on it, because again, as the momentum builds in terms of that race to carbon neutral events, that 13% in a year's time could easily become 20, 25, and have we got the credentials in place? Again, in the chat box, please feel free to share if you are doing work around this, or indeed if any of the data and the numbers surprises you, or you're seeing something different, because you're such a rich source of content and view for us, and this will help as well as we develop the research for you, further. Now, for anyone on the call today, you'll recognize a wonderful smiling face of Mariella McElraith, who has spoken at our conferences in the Americas, who will be with us in Las Vegas at the end of next month, and hopefully will be with us for our Knowledge Festival as well in the future. But when I approached Mariella in relation to these figures that we were looking at, one of the areas that the Events Industry Council has recognized is really important but fragmented at the moment, is that there is no single measurement in place for the meetings or indeed the events industry globally to be able to measure an event, whether it's a conference, a trade show, or a simple small meeting. There are, however, some good tools out there, and Mariella shared with us Terrapass.com as one of those tools. And interestingly, at least it really interested me to see it, BP, British Petroleum, have got their own event carbon calculator on the website. If you go to the report, you can just simply click that link to BP and it'll take you right the way to the carbon report. And actually, the carbon calculator on the BP site is pretty good as well. It's simple, but it's clear to articulate, and it gives you a credible number at the end. One of our members in the United Kingdom, De Vere Hotels, highlighted that they work with a tool called Consensus, which of course starts with CO2 at the beginning. So you can see there are different reports that are out there, but it's still in equal measure. We really need to get to, as an industry, having one single methodology and algorithm for measuring our carbon footprint. So Kate, I'm going to come back on camera just briefly now to have a look at some of the comments we've got in there, but is there any common theme that you've seen?
So a few come in, so obviously depending on countries, but Justin Griffith said he's in Pennsylvania, so they're expecting to be at 2019 levels by Q3 2023. Okay. Lotta in Sweden said Q2 2022, and interestingly, Dennis is in the UK. Dennis Flanagan from the Golden Jubilee is saying Q3 2022. So
two areas of optimism there, two venues rather that are optimistic in Europe. I know as well, Justin, and I appreciate Justin's property, which is a corporate conference venue. So again, you're influenced by your regions, and even within the United States, there are certainly some of the outlier regions as well that are performing differently to the large cities. So we totally appreciate location as well as country and continent are important for you. Ellen makes a comment there, recovery varies by regions, yeah, but generally looking at ranging from Q3 2023 right the way through to Q2 2024. So there's a clear indicator. Benchmark Hospitality run a number of hotels and conference centers. Some of those, are in rural locations, and that I'm sure is influencing the Q2 2024 projection. So Ellen, thank you for sharing those with us.
And Mark, I'm sorry, I corrected myself. I can't type. So it's actually Q3 22 to Q2 23.
Okay. Thank you, Ellen. Appreciate that. You could tell I was moving down the list. That's interesting as well. So that correction is more in line with what we were hearing from some of our other management companies that have multiple properties, where they were quite surprised by that America's 2024 acknowledgement. So they were feeling that 2023 was probably the year that a number of the management companies across the US would return to 2019 levels. So you're right in that space as well. So really appreciate you sharing that. Ladies and gents, please, as well as we reach this halfway point in the presentation, please do share any other comments. I'll keep a beady eye on the chat box, and Kate will call out any questions that you've got as well, or opinions. And we'll have time at the end. It's a 45-minute session. We can go cameras on. We can just discuss some of these thoughts, maybe any questions that you've got as well in person. It's a nice, small but mighty group that we've got here today. So let's go back. Let's look at phase 2. So property and product investment. Marketed venues, so this is where there is a difference. Marketed venues, we're planning a greater level of investment in the facilities in the next 18 months compared to our corporate conference centres. So it could well be that the corporate properties were well maintained. Could well be that they had been more aggressive prior to the pandemic in terms of being able to take space off and improve those venues, whereas marketed properties might be more driven and reluctant to do that. But that's interesting to see that there is a slight difference there. Also, that the residential and non-residential commercial venues were both planning significant investment in conference and meeting spaces in the next 18 months to 2 years. When we looked at drilling down into these numbers, again, some of the interesting elements of the membership were that the residential venues were planning to invest more, for instance, in dining and outdoor spaces. Hence why I shared my nice, glorious picture of Capella Putz Garden and outdoor breakout spaces there. Is this a hangover from the pandemic? Possibly, but actually this could be that real willingness to want to join and be meeting and collaborating and working outside could well carry on and become, you know, an area that we invest even more in the future. So let's take a look here now at our planned investment areas in the next 18 months. There you can see very clearly, look at those top three, conference and meeting room spaces for the marketed side, public spaces as well. Now, what's interesting here is that it's only by a couple of percentage points, but you know, the corporate venues are planning to invest in those public spaces. So maybe, just maybe, there's been a very clear shift overall that's led to our corporate venues adjusting that balance between meeting space and investment there, and the need to open up and create more social spaces, of course, even when the pandemic has dissipated and that, you know, that fear of being close to people has gone away. But that's interesting to see that almost, you know, every area apart from public spaces, corporate venues are sitting behind our marketed friends. Now, some of our venues absolutely took the opportunity to do this in 2021. So I returned from our host conference venue for our Knowledge Festival in Europe this September, an incredible property about 30 minutes outside of Amsterdam and close to Utrecht. Contact the Contendium, and they took the opportunity in 2021 when their venue was closed to refit all of their social and restaurant and bar space. It's shining like a new pin, but again, that's put them in great position for the next 4 to 5 years ahead, because they don't need to close down or upset any existing clients. They took that move. So let's take a look at property and product investment. So from our other research that IACC did back in February of this year, so it's still very new. This is when we were working with our student group from the University of Maastricht Business Management School. We surveyed the leading HR leaders at C-suite level in global organizations. So this included IBMs, it's included the sort of General Electrics, the large players, and they said very, very clearly, hybrid is here to stay. We expect an increase in demand for virtual meetings in the short to mid-term. So this is really important to think of it. In the discussions that we're having at the moment, one of the areas that I'd encourage us all maybe just to think about very carefully is just as we transition back to live, as we are getting out of our system, very deservedly, the fact that we just want to meet live. And we're hearing people say, we don't want virtual element, we don't want Zoom. I mean, we haven't got it for our own conference in May because we researched our members, and the basic thinking was that if we can turn up in person, we're going to, and if we can't, we're zoomed out and we're operating our properties. However, let's just be a little bit cautious when we look at this, because we will get through that getting out of our system, getting back to live, and there will be a new normal in the future. And the one thing we've become incredibly good at is investing in our technology, as you can see here, in easily being able to provide a hybrid offer within our venues. I mean, think about this before 2020. If somebody would have said, I want to come in, I want to live stream our conference and event, it probably would have taken us weeks to come up with a solution and outsourced it and brought in specialists and AV companies to do it. That's not the case anymore. We are ready and digitally live charged as venues. And let's keep one eye on the fact that we may well start to see, as things settle down even further over the next year, that we bring the digital attendance back into our 100% live events that we're just seeing taking place at the moment. And here's an example from Encore Global, one of our long-standing trusted partners, experts in this space. They really led the charge in regards to developing the hybrid offer in the heart of the pandemic. But this is a picture, a diagram of a meeting environment as they see it. And what they're looking at here is moving more to two-channel communication. So as opposed to having a single screen on the wall and then people sitting around, they're bringing the virtual group in and the presentation content into the middle of this U-shaped type of layout. It makes much more sense, right? Because you're looking at your attendees that are coming in virtually, or indeed in another live environment somewhere else at another venue. You're looking at them right in front of you, as opposed to all looking in a single direction at a wall. So it's bringing in a richer environment here. And Encore will continue, I'm sure, to develop the in-house capabilities that they offer. So now what we'll do is we'll take a look at the areas of improvement budgets and how they change, and where are we planning to invest, to what level within our properties. Now, we've broken this down between the Americas and Europe. Now, it took me a little bit of a while to work this one out, but I'm going to help you with the colored circles here now that I've got it. If you've got a circle with a white center, it means nobody voted in there. So in Europe, nobody voted that their improvements budget was going to be up 100% or up 75%. But there were some, in this case 4%, who said their improvements budget is going to be over 100%. So look at that pattern. In the Americas, a lot more variety across, most people picked one of those numbers. But in Europe, nobody said, for instance, that their improvements budget was going to be down by 50% or more. So some key numbers here, and 25% is a really popular number, I think it's fair to say, overall. So as you plan your budgeting for next year, hopefully this data will be of value to you as you present your cases for your improvement budgets as well. Talent attraction and retention, of course. We knew this was going to be a challenge. We knew this was going to be a challenge before it was a challenge. And we hear lots now. Our media friends have picked up on the great resignation, the demographic drought. There's so many words for it, and there'll be even more. But what was interesting in our research was the expected talent shortages you were predicting that they would be alleviated over time. And quite a lot of you were saying that, that they will alleviate almost in parallel with the return to full operating to pre-pandemic levels. So if you are a property saying we're not going to come back to, to that level until 2023, you were also citing that your return to full staffing to be able to support your business was going to run almost in parallel with that. So that's good news. You were not anticipating that workforce shortages generally were going to impact meeting client needs throughout this year. There are some deeper dive statistics either in the infographic or in the main report there, which tells some varied stories there. But 55% of you reported that the venue has or will return to that full staffing level by the end of this year. Now, as I look at those figures, as I hear the noise in the wider meetings and hospitality industry, I ask myself the question, as we are a sector of a very big industry that forevermore has been regarded as one which has had a low turnover in staff, that has been able to retain our staff because of the environments that we provide are great working environments, then are we in a stronger position than our competitors in our city, in our town, in our region, who we're competing against, who may not offer us an attractive employment opportunity? So this could become a competitive advantage, and one potentially for you to look at in relation to how fully staffed you are, how prepared you are to deliver an excellent meeting environment. I mean, who would think it? And I'm not advocating that it's the case, but just think how crazy it would be to say part of your RFP, and we are 100% staffed to look after your event when you come to us in July this year. Incredible, isn't it? But it's a new reality that we're dealing with, because you can't say that across the board, across our competitor set. So now let's take a look at a bit of a deeper dive in terms of how our staffing has changed. Now, 24% of our new hires that are working in our property have less than 12 months experience in the meetings industry. I'm really interested in your views here. Think about this for a moment. 24% of new hires have less than 12 months industry experience. How different is that today than it was before? And does this highlight for us that even though we're bringing people back, which is great, we're filling vacant spaces, what are we going to need to do in the coming months and years to be able to bring those 24% up to speed in terms of knowledge, passion, understanding the culture, having the sales skills? And with this, I'll draw a very obvious parallel to the IAC webinars, our sales training, the training that takes place at the IAC conferences, the different webinars. You'll hear of one at the end of this session today. IAC, as part of a member benefit for all of you, provides on-demand live opportunities to learn. So for those new hires that are coming in without the knowledge and experience and passion for our industry, please do connect them to IAC and make sure they're attending those educational opportunities. Many of them are cost-free. I mentioned right at the beginning as well that there is a clear difference between some of the areas of general focus in terms of our rebound and other areas as it relates to importance that we feel. And clearly in the research that we did with those of you who run properties, the CSR element rode through in terms of importance. Sustainable and ethical practices, you've said, will be more important in the future. And we're seeing that with the other industry data and other reports. Look at Events Industry Council's SCPC course, which is Sustainable Event Professional Certificate, so an actual certificate level. There are a number of clear educational opportunities that are being brought into the industry, quite rightly, to make sure that we're not only doing this stuff, but we're skilled at doing it from a consulting level and there to support our clients. You said, as in venue operators, the ability to donate food is one of the most important factors that as venue operators you want to do. Now again, as we listen to people like Mariella McElrath and Tracy Struckrath as well, these sort of numbers provide an excellent opportunity. Yes, 54% of you are donating food and feel that you can do that properly, and you've got these outreach programs. And we're seeing that number improving as national and local governments take away the red tape to be able to donate more. But we're also seeing that there are still some barriers and opportunities, particularly if we think about that race to net zero by whatever year, 2030, 2040, 2050. I don't think many people are predicting beyond then. I think we're pretty sure by then we'll be there. But the ability to donate any form of waste that is unavoidable is going to be really important. One of the key areas, though, is making it avoidable and reducing our waste. And across Europe, there was a very clear difference at this stage, but I highlight this only as an opportunity for IAC to share best practices. After all, this is why you're part of a global organization, is to share ideas that matter across continents, across countries. But there is a difference at the moment in regards to having a solid social responsibility policy statement in place. Have a look online. There are some great examples of these, and we'll do some deeper digging as well in the future. Now, by special request, we asked the question around that area of single-use products. And again, this isn't new to IAC. In fact, it's been around for a while. We know we're on this journey, but still, in my mind, alarmingly, we've got a high number of our members that are still using single-use plastic for drinks products, for plastic bottles. I again just returned yesterday from Denmark, and I asked for some water to go out for a run in the morning, one of the more admirable days where I managed to get out and do some exercise. And it was like like a miniature milk carton that was made of a paper-based material card as opposed to plastic. But that sort of example is still in the minority. And I know some of our members, even in Europe, are coming to us saying, what great examples out there are there of reducing the use of plastic bottles in meeting rooms for water? There is this clear search to eradicate them. Single plastic food utensils, you know, still not far behind there, and guest room amenities. So we still have some way to go. If we don't want to get into the 2030 and 2040 and feel like we are the tobacco companies of the 1980s, like the bad industry out there, because in other industries are moving forward at a rapid rate of knots. Another example that I used very recently is if we think that this is being self-propelled and we look at the companies requesting the ability to measure carbon footprint, etc., and think this isn't going to come about, companies are just not that interested. Take a look at Google and their travel policy or their event policy. So Google have a self-imposed tax for their employees. If they want to attend an industry conference or go on a business trip that involves flying, etc., then they have to calculate, putting their event that they want to attend, it calculates a self-imposed tax that they have to pay personally into the company. Now, you heard that absolutely right, but that's not the important piece. The important piece is that they want from the average business event and attendant figure of around $100 per person. They changed the algorithm in the last 2 or 3 months, and it's now $236 on average per person. So just think about how organizations are really, really pushing hard in pursuit of their own goals to be carbon neutral and sustainable. So these sort of things now, if we can get ahead of the curve, it's absolutely the right thing to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we come back to this, do feel free. I'm going to give you just a report summary, but we'll come back onto camera. I'm clear until the hour, so happy to chat through your thoughts as it relates to it. But, you know, expect the aftershocks with supply and demand for our meeting room space and labour, and as well as the supply chain to continue being a challenge for us. The recovery is definitely well underway, and we should be really proud of that fact. And although we may not be where we want to be, you know, and completely back to those levels, we're certainly doing better than a lot of the industry. So let's shout about this to our media partners, to our customers, because as we bounce back to normal quicker than anyone else, our competitors may not be in the same spot. They might still be dragging their heels, dragging their investment, not hiring people, because their event venues are still half full half of the week. Definitely, you heard very loud and clear that IAC members, they embraced the new technology needs. They're prepared for the future, for that digitally embraced meeting concept. And venues are responding to the attendee desire for ethical conduct and, of course, transparency. Now, you can download the report from our website. You also see the image on the right-hand side there is the infographic that we have. It's about 4 or 5 pages long. It's a great PDF to be able to download. You can view it online on Flipping Book, but you can download that, and you have the ability as well to be able to share that with your department heads in your staff meeting. Just share some of the key data. Now I'm going to come back on screen now. And I actually, Kate, do we have the wonderful Andrew Moffat join the call today? I'm not sure if Andrew's on.
No, he's not been able to join, Mark, unfortunately.
Okay, well then I'm going to do the job for him. So our next webinar is on May 12th, 11 EST. Southern Aluminum have been a partner of IACC for many, many years and been very present at America's Connect. In fact, they're bringing a whole swathe of new event furnishings and thinking and design to IACC America's Connect at the end of May. But join Andrew for a session on the 12th of May. Look at what and why event design and furnishing design is changing. Southern Aluminum, although they're in the US, they have a very global perspective, but we're really excited to welcome Andrew and Southern Aluminum for that first event, or first webinar with us. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm back on camera now. Feel free to join as well, but hopefully that's given you a good snapshot. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Ask away. And if you have no questions at all, feel free to use the extra time to get yourself a nice tea or coffee ahead of the next call. But Kate, I'll hand over to you. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing today?
No, just a warm thank you to everyone for joining us. As I said earlier in the beginning, we will send the recording out to you all and to share with your colleagues. And it will also be available on the website and YouTube channel. So look out for that, and hope to see you on another session with us very soon.
That's great, Kate. And thank you very much. Thank you, Lotta. Thank you, Rebecca. Justin, I'm glad that's been of value. And Ellen, again, thank you for joining us on behalf of our global task force as well, and for all the work that you continue to do. It's incredible. Let's go enjoy that recovery and conquer our industry and win some new business. So it's great to see everyone. You take care. Oh, and Natalie, whilst I'm still on, are there any specifics available as to why Denmark has bounced back so quickly? So Denmark, two things. Denmark didn't close like Sweden. They stayed very much open. They have a very deep culture for learning and development and meetings. They also were a country that got some very strong financial support when it was needed for the sector from the Danish government. So I think it's a real mixture of desire, and culturally it's built into them to want to meet in person, face to face, having the ability to do so, venues being in a position to bounce back so quickly, and they've just been prepared and ready for it. And close behind them, I would say, is Sweden, and as we saw, we're seeing different properties that are coming back as well. Yeah, I think it's just determination and desire, Natalie. Okay, Kate, I think that is all the questions for today. So we'll wish everyone a great rest of your Tuesday. Take care.
Take care, everybody.